Good morning everybody. Right, it is not warm here today, but you know, nice going for a dog walk. So what do I want to talk about today? Starlink is what I want to talk about, because there's a hidden cost which has recently been sort of made apparent to me, and I thought you should know, especially if you're off grid. This is particularly relevant, as you will see. Albie, come on. Starlink. In a nutshell, I have discovered, because I recently got a smart meter installed at my house, that Starlink uses a huge amount of power. Like, gargantuan. Okay, that's probably a slight exaggeration, but it is using a solid 85 watts almost all the time, morning and night, which that's going to add up over an entire year. So that's our new smart meter. Had one of these things before. They're pretty nifty. But fundamentally, okay, so V is downstairs with the TV on and the PS5, so that's where most of that power draw is coming from. But the house, I've never seen it use less than about 85 watts. Presumably that's actually when the fridge freezer is not running, because when that is running, it goes up to about 180, 200. So my estimation, based on the fact that there are things plugged in that are on standby and all the rest of it, is that the Starlink should be drawing around 55 watts, 55 to 65 watts at all times, even when you're not using the internet at all. And here's the thing, that does add up to a reasonable amount of power over the space of a whole year. Best case scenario, it's about 480 kilowatts for a year, which equates to around about 160 pounds, which is not inconsiderable. That's more than 10% of extra cost on top of what you're paying monthly for the Starlink. So not nothing. And on top of that, of course, if you're living off grid or you're living from a van somewhere where you have a limited amount of power generation capability because of it comes from the sun or wind or whatever, then that does add up to a consideration. It's going to require a serious amount of electricity to run this thing all the time. And I was actually a bit surprised. I mean, I suppose I knew that it costs something, but I didn't really sort of think about it, because when you have broadband, it uses like 5 watts. It's negligible to nothing, you know, maybe 10 at the outside when you have a sort of a landline broadband. But of course, a satellite transceiver has got a lot more to do. It's got to create a signal that is powerful enough to be heard by a satellite 300 miles up in orbit. And it's also got to have receivers that are sensitive enough to actually pick that up on the reverse end of things as well. So, yeah, interesting. It was interesting. And I suppose this is the point of smart meters, honestly, is they do help to highlight when you're using power and when you're not. And what sort of things are likely to be causing you quite a lot of power drain. A bit of an eye-opener, especially when you consider the cost of electricity at the moment, which is not great. I'd love to have solar panels on this roof, but this is a rented accommodation and also a conservation area, so unluckily we are not going to be able to do that. Anyway, something else that I thought I would talk about briefly. I suppose it's a bit of an insurmountable contradiction that Elon Musk and SpaceX, so Elon Musk being somebody who is a proponent of green technology, generally speaking, or at least, that was the idea behind Tesla anyhow, and yet Starlink is using quite a lot more energy than a broadband alternative. Of course, he would say that it's not supposed to replace ordinary broadband, and I can see that. I have actually sort of considered pausing my Starlink subscription and just taking out a normal broadband, save a bit of energy and save a bit of money as well. The problem is the broadband around here is not great, which, and unfortunately I need good broadband. That's what the whole, uploading videos, it takes long enough as it is. And the other thing is they'll tie me into a 12-month contract, so I won't have any chance to go back to Starlink if I find the service not good enough. They are going to put fibre down the road, so perhaps when that happens I'll reconsider things if it's not too expensive. But yeah, also, while we're on the subject of Elon Musk and his green, what's the word, contradictions, I was reading a Guardian article the other day about how much his private jet flies about the place, and it's ridiculous. Yeah, this thing's got like 19 seats and a kitchen and a bathroom, and it's like a, you know, real fancy corporate jet, and it's one of those little luxuries. I mean, the man doesn't own a house, not a proper one, apparently, but he does have a really swanky private jet, which it does actually kind of make sense for him, I suppose, because although it uses a huge amount of CO2, there just aren't enough hours in the day. If he needs to get down to Texas to see how Starship's doing and have meetings down there and direct the development and all of that, and he also has to work at X, obviously, but also Tesla is a very big thing, and there's just, you know, there's not enough time in the day for him to drive back and forwards. He'd end up spending 30% of his time in the back of a limo being driven around, which obviously wouldn't be CO2 free, but more to the point, it wouldn't be a good use of his time, I suppose. So I suppose it really depends on how much you value his time. And obviously he values his time very highly, and so do his shareholders. I actually value his time quite highly as well, because I want him to be able to put the time and effort into making Starship really work, because I think it is just an absolutely pivotal step forwards for literally the, you know, life on this planet. It'll be the first time when, you know, life has actually got a reasonable chance of being able to migrate away from where it started in this solar system, and we've no idea how rare it is. So the fact that it could spread, and, you know, all the possibilities that come from it, I think it's worth it. I really do. I think it's in the history of planet Earth. I think this is an effort which is a substantial chapter of the history of planet Earth. So it's worth doing, I think. If he was flying around to have meetings with X, then I'd be like, okay, just, you know, really? Do you have to? I think, I don't know, the whole Twitter stroke X thing, I think, has been a massive distraction and debacle, and not a sensible thing for him to do. But anyway, that's a topic for another vlog post, I think. Right, well, I'm going to say goodbye for today, and I hope you've enjoyed today's post. If you have, remember to leave a like and share it, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow me on X and Instagram if you like. Links are in the description. I want to say a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome, and I will see you all in the next episode of my vlog. Bye!